In its original form, the Guzzi does come with a set of clip-ons. Here we have the left one, and as we can see, and in all fairness as would be expected for a 35-year-old bike, they are looking quite tatty and worse for wear. They're very simple clamping arrangement for the top of the fork tube here, a small riser to bring it onto the actual bar itself. The bulk of it here does appear to be painted in quite a thick coat of paint, which has taken quite a beating. And then where the grip is fitted, we can see there's no paint at all, and some horrible scratches, no doubt put there when I pulled the bike to pieces. As I have already machined a new top yoke and a new bottom yoke for the bike, I'm minded to have a go at now machining some clip-ons. When I machined the yokes, I used some fairly chunky aluminium billet, 6082 grade. For the top I used 50mm, and for the bottom yoke I used 35mm. So with what I have left, these bits of excess, I've got enough now I think to machine a couple of clamps from the thicker parts, and then a couple of risers from the thinner parts. So a bit of time now on the CAD to translate my thinking into some designs, and then we'll get on with some machining. After a couple of hours on the CAD, I've come up with these designs. I'll show these actually in a little picture off to the side here. So I've printed off the design. We've got a side elevation here. So this is the clamp that goes around the fork leg, and this is the riser. And then ultimately the handlebar itself will go into the hole here. And then a plan view with the clamp, and again the riser here. I'm a little bit limited on my lumps of aluminium. So what I've done is actually cut out the outlines. So this is the side elevation of the riser. And it will, with a bit of jiggling, fit onto the smaller of the two blocks of the 35mm. Unfortunately it won't go on square, which just means a little bit more machining, because I do need two sides square to start all my work. So what I'll need to do to make it fit, to make sure I'm not pushing the edges too far, is I'll just machine this flat on the mill with an end mill, this bottom surface but a slight angle, just to allow that to sit around, and then also face this corner here. And once I've got those two faces, it's going to be a very simple operation to use the DRO in the mill to drill the clamping holes, and the main hole for the handlebar, and the relief hole here for the other elevation, which is effectively front on, looking onto the riser. This is an outline. I'm going to rework this actually, because I'm going to make the top part that clamps the handlebar itself the full width of this block, the full 35mm. From here, I think it's onto the milling table, get the workpiece clamped down, and machine those two faces to get me going. As we can see, I've got the workpiece clamped onto the milling machine table. What I've also done is I've applied a layer of marking out blue to the top of the workpiece, and I've also stuck the outline of the side profile for the riser onto the workpiece. And then finally you can see the line I've scribed across, which will be the reference point for the workpiece. So I will mill this along the line and then mill it square here, and there will be my two reference sides from which I can then move the table to centre across the various holes. To bore the hole for the handlebar here, I've got the workpiece set up in the lathe. It was a bit of a toss-up between using the milling machine or the lathe to do the boring, The actual boring exercise itself is much easier in the lathe than it is in the milling machine, but it is a faff to set it up. Getting the faceplate fitted onto lathe is not an easy exercise, and of course securing the workpiece on the faceplate, as we can see, is also quite a challenge. I've got these clamps on both sides, which ultimately is going to lead to a lot of rotating mass. The balance actually doesn't seem too bad. It's a little bit heavier on this side, but not significantly, so we should be okay. Truing it up was a bit awkward, and as you can see, I'm using a floated center suspended between the center drilled hole on the workpiece and another dead center fitted into the tailstock. It's not ideal. It would be better if I could have the dial indicator much closer to the workpiece, but we're getting round about 0.04 mil run out, which I can live with. This is only a handlebar mount. So from here it's quite a simple job of drilling as far as I can before throwing the boring bar in and bring it out to diameter, 22.225 millimeters, which is 7/8 of an inch. That should be good for a finish now, and just as a quick check, we'll just it's not going past the dings, which is good. I've cut off most of the excess. It's now just a case of cleaning up both the sides in the mill, first getting it lined to the table, the x-axis, and then I'll stick an end mill in and we'll clean up this side and the far side. I'll probably do the rounding of the outer diameter as the last exercise. In terms of finishing off the profile for the riser, all I need to do now is mill the radius for this end. It needs to correspond closely to the radius for the shoulders that I turned in the lathe. As you can see, I've got the workpiece firmly fixed to the rotary table, and I've got a nice big chunky end mill in the milling machine. So we'll drop this down and we'll just turn that radius. There's a very slight line where the radii merge, but I think that's good. Machining the second riser was a repeat of the process taken for the first. I have made them slightly different. As you can see, they are handed. So on the outer shoulder is deeper than on the inner shoulder, and likewise on the other riser. To complete them, there's a couple of smaller jobs. My original intent was to put a slit joining the recess here to the main hole for the handlebar itself, and then a clamping bolt down between the two. I'm a bit concerned about strength, and I think putting a slit in the middle of it will bring a lot of weakness. So I'm going to think a little bit more about how I can actually hold the handlebar. I might fix them permanently. I also need to put a couple of holes through to enable the riser to be bolted firmly to the clamp, but I'll wait until I've completed the clamp before drilling those holes. Regarding the clamp, here we have a piece of the thicker material, the 50mm aluminium plate, and we can see the profile sits on top quite nicely. And if we look at the side profile, we can see that it overhangs. So unfortunately, I'm not willing to make these any smaller with all the force that will be on them. I've ordered some more aluminium, I guess it'll be a week or so before that arrives, given we're almost on Christmas. Once it comes in, I'll finish off the clamps and follow up this video. Thank you all for watching.